good, YouTube? It's me, your boy Squiddy, back and get another Squiddy-O. I have a list of cards that I think could be potentially good for the upcoming format, you know, post-ban list, and once we get the Legacy of Destruction booster pack. Without further ado, let's dive in and start the Black Goat Labs. This is a trap card that was recently released in Yugioh. A lot of people just kind of shook it under the radar. You know, Labs kind of experimented with it, but it wasn't that good. But now it might actually have some application. This card has an on-field effect that says declare one monster name. This turn, neither player can special summon monsters with that original name except from the graveyard. And then the other effect is you can banish this card from your graveyard, declare a monster card name. This turn, neither player can activate the effects of monsters on the field with that original name. And in the OCG, a lot of players have actually been siding this against Tenpai Dragons because you can call one of the dragon names, therefore cutting them off completely from going off into the combo. Whether that's Bedora, or you can actually call the Tenpai Dragon Zongdora in response to its activation trigger effect that reveals in hand to special summon itself. If you flip Black Goat Labs, you call Zongdora. That means they're not going to be able to summon it out. And then they're not going to be able to go off into their synchro monsters, which are typically level 7, and start super combo and go off into Trident Dragon, do a bunch of damage to you directly to the dome over 30k. So that's why a lot of people have been kind of playing around with this card. Another thing is really cool because you can call some other things that are just prevalent in the format. If things are trying to special summon out, for example, Garunix from the hand, once Fire Kings be more popular, I think after the ban list, it might be, assuming they do hit the pure Snake Eyes, like the core engine, so you kind of have to supplement it with other things. And then when he's in the graveyard, obviously, you still get to use the effect of the pseudo breakthrough skill by declaring the monster name, and then the player cannot activate that card name. So if they have something on the field like an Appaloosa, maybe after you've used the Black Goat Labs, you can definitely start negating that. Against the Dragon Tenpai deck, you can also negate Hieratic Seals of the Heavenly Spears. So just has a lot of application overall. I think this is the type of card that could be better when there are more decks that require a certain card name to be special summoned as a starter play or an extender play. Just know that it does not prevent them from being special summoned from the graveyard, so that's just one little drawback of this card. I think you can kind of circumvent that in certain decks, and in a way that can actually stifle your opponent at the right choke point, right? So, but I think this is the type of card that's actually quite cheap right now, especially for Secret Rare. For like $8 or $9, I definitely think that this might be a card to be good stock up on, especially for the new format. Next is another obscure card. I don't know if it's necessarily super good, but, you know, I was reading through my bulk trying to find cards that are good against Tenpai Dragons because that deck is a go second OTK deck that requires the battle phase. And Thunder Ruler says during your opponent's standby phase, you can activate this card. There's no battle phase this turn, so your opponent skips your entire battle phase, which means none of these monsters are going to be using the effects to actually special summon out in the battle phase, nor will they be able to synchro summon. And if you guys have seen Tenpai Dragons in action without a battle phase, the deck doesn't do a lot, at least in the core engine. The best you can do is like a Hieratic Seal, the Heavenly Spears. Sometimes they can go into a Zokin, but it does require multiple cards in order to go to Crystal Wing. So I think predominantly most Tenpai players have been settling for the Hieratic Seals. That being said, maybe this is the type of card that can really stifle them, especially when they choose to go second all the time. So if they, let's say they win game 1 or game 2, in game 2, game 3, they choose to go second, so you're going first. So you automatically knowing that you're probably going to be going first and siding this card in could just mean you win the duel because it skips your turn, more or less, right? Like, they're not going to be able to use any of their battle phase effects, and you probably have a board back behind Thunder Ruler. Sometimes that can just be game breaking. It's like a D-barrier, pseudo D-barrier for the Tenpai Dragons if you think about it that way. So I think this card is all right. Definitely want to pick up some. I mean, they're scarce. They are common in a bunch of different printings, but they're pretty old in terms of being printed. One thing to note is that this card is also kind of troll because of the fact that it shuts off the battle phase. If there's a deck that plays evenly matched sided in against you, you can actually prevent evenly matched from being a thing as well. So yeah, it's kind of odd, but you know, it's definitely something to think about. Okay, next up, another card in the same vein of turn skips, Dimensional Barrier. A lot of people kind of forgotten about this card, but this card does a lot against the current format. I'm talking about rogue decks, you know, obviously being able to use it against Branded is just like game breaking. Voiceless as well, calling Ritual so they can't summon out Skull Guardian is also turn skipping. And it could be useful against Tenpai Dragons because they do a lot of synchro summoning. So if you call synchro, it does shut off a lot of their OTK potential. They're not going to be able to go into things like the Biden Dragon, into the other dragon, into the overall powerful Trident Dragon. And when you call synchro against them, there's not a lot that they can actually bridge into besides Link monsters. I don't even think they play any XYZs, so it's really easy for you to get the upper hand against a dragon deck. I think just playing D-Barrier and the fact that it's chainable outside of any particular phase makes it a lot more valuable if they play a lot of board wipes. I know some OCG players were playing like Lightning Storm and Cosmic Cyclone just to clear the back row and then attack for games. So that allows you to chain it, and then it guarantees that you're not going to die that turn, which is the most scary thing when you do play against the Tempai Dragons, is just losing on the spot, right? So that's just another thing to be aware of. And the fact that this card can call XYZs, Fusion, Synchro, you know, you can do a lot against random decks, like roll decks in the format. Even calling XYZs against Purely is like sometimes just really, really powerful. So I think the card could definitely see some more play in the upcoming format, especially if Snake Eyes starts to peter out of existence more and more, if they do actually hit it adequately enough. Next is another card that kind of shuts down the deck, but Deck Lockdown, some people have already been experimenting with this. It's very, very powerful as a type of floodgate card, especially when you get hand trapped a couple times. You know, you activate this and your opponent's not going to be able to special summon or add from their deck to their hand. The Tempai Dragons do special summon from the deck using Zongdora, so that's just one little thing you shut off, and they do a lot of adding with Sangen Kaiman as well as the field spell. These cards both say add a fire level 4 or lower dragon monster from your deck to your hand. So having Deck Lockdown does have some application against the deck. It doesn't lock them out completely, but it does do something. I mean, even against Snake Eyes, it does a little bit. If you can stop them from actually resolving Snake Eyes Ash to summon out the Poplar, then sometimes that's really, really devastating for them. So it does do quite a bit against a lot of decks in the format. I mean, Voiceless, it's not even needed to be said, but these guys add a lot, so shutting them off is quite nice. And then on top of that, just shutting off monsters being special summoned from the deck, period. So nothing, no funky shenanigans are going to happen. Even against Snake Eyes, you're not going to be able to summon out Flamberg Dragon. So this is a card that I think could actually see some play, especially if Summon Limit actually gets hit on the ban list, because a lot of people are rumoring that, you know, maybe this card will actually get hit, because Deck Lockdown basically fills in the gaps that Summon Limit doesn't. It does everything except for restrict their summons. So yeah, this could be the next problematic Floodgate card. Who knows? Next is another hand trap that people have been hyping up, but Ghost Ogre, this card is obviously very, very powerful against Tempai Dragons because you can just hit their field spell, bring a Sanguine Manor. They can play around it by not activating the effect, but at some point they're probably going to have to use the effect, assuming they didn't open the actual starters that you need. Against Voiceless, you can hit the Radiance that's already face up, as well as Barrier. Against Fire Kings, you can even hit the Fire King Island, especially now that players are cutting Fire King Sanctuary for whatever reason. So, like, it's just exposed and easily for you to pop up. There are a lot of cool things that you can actually hit with Ghost Ogre in the format right now. It's just one of those cards that people forget about, and then once a continuous spell card or a field spell or whatever is good again, this card, boom, suddenly becomes so high impact in the metagame. The fact that you can also hit cards like IP Masquerena, prevent them from linking off, or an onboard Appaloosa is quite nice. There's just like some other things that you can use with this card. A lot of people have forgotten that there are a lot of marginal niche utilities with this card in general, and once it's good against like one or two decks in the format, it just becomes like an auto include in the side deck or the main deck. So this is something I think you guys should definitely pick up. And then last but not least, this is something that I've seen OCG players experimenting with. No, not in Flu, but Harpie's Featherstorm in level 1 decks, because you can actually overlay for something like a LYRILUSC Assembled Nightingale if you want to protect it from being destroyed by battle. Also, this card can attack directly for time or make Zeus, or you can also make Recital Starling. Both of these monsters require 2 or more level 1 monsters. With Recital Starling, you can also detach a card to search for a copy of DD Crow. And then if you actually side deck Thrust with a copy of Harpie's Featherstorm, you can then set the Featherstorm and guarantee that you lock your opponent out for the turn. Now, this is obviously something that's already existing in the current metagame. It's a little bit inconsistent, but I think with the Tempai Dragons coming out, it becomes a lot better because you're actually guaranteeing that you're not going to lose that turn, right? So this allows you to shut off their turn of monster effects, but on top of that, you can also shut off other decks of their monster effects, assuming you're able to get 2 level 1 bodies on the board, which is easy in like Flamberge decks. And then from there, you just overlay and then make the Harpie's Featherstorm live. So this is just like more gimmicky than anything. I'm not sure if it's actually worth playing, but it's just an option I thought I'd throw out there so you guys can maybe explore. There's definitely some potential in it, but I don't know if it's like super non-gimmicky. It's a little bit cute. But guys, what do you think about this? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts about these cards so far, or if any cards that I didn't go over today you would like for the community to know, let us know in the comments below. Other than that, thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.